Hello, and welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers' 6th Halloween show on Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. I'm your host, Mark Miller. With the assistance of Blue Forge Press and Film and Bremerton Kitsap Television, we plan to have another ghoulish time today. Did you notice I'm not wearing a mask? Because, guess what? Unless you're in a doctor's office, you don't have to wear one anymore! But if you want to wear one for Halloween, of course, go ahead, as long as it's nice and scary. Hopefully my aged face here isn't breaking the camera. As you can tell, I'm at the Blue Forge Film Studios at the Blue Forge campus. We will present recordings of various authors reading their unnerving, scary, and unsettling stories, delivered in past unnerving volumes. So get some popcorn, some Halloween candy, chase off the bats and black cats, pour yourself some witch's brew, and help us celebrate All Hallows Eve and El Dia de los Muertos with some mortifying literary productions. First, we have a section of a story written by J.W. Capek. Janice, a member of Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers, is known for her science fiction series involving the development of a third gender after a worldwide disaster. So sit back and enjoy this literary work.
Hello, I'm J.W. Capek, and today I'm going to read you a story called Ashes to Ashes. The spring hellebores hung their fading blossoms over the body, bleeding out beneath them. The slugs were already appearing. They slimed towards the mouth, nose, and eyes of the old man, fallen upon a lethal tote of gardening implements. It seemed obvious and fair that Ralph had tripped on a flagstone circling the koi pond and was impaled on the gardening tools as he fell. Even now, the blood-drenched baby tears tried to crawl from beneath him. Carolyn, his wife, calmly called 911 and spoke with an equally calm dispatcher. "There's been a terrible accident in my garden. My husband is dead." Following instructions, she circled the house, through the garden gate, and watched the mansion driveway fill with vehicles. There was a police car, a county sheriff's off-road vehicle, a fire engine, a fire chief's red sedan, an ambulance, 2 more sheriff vehicles, a coroner's van, and eventually a service van from the Acme Crematorium Society. There were EMTs snapping on blue latex gloves, sheriffs putting on writing pads, one policeman going ahead to the garden and making an all-clear signal to the others, and a scurry of men and women trying to avoid falling into the koi pond as they assessed Ralph, the body. It was soon clear to all that Ralph was beyond assistance. One particular hoary blade was thrust deep into the hemorrhaged midsection, while a stainless steel cultivator was jammed into the chest. It was only guesswork where the Gruber on the digging match was buried. The EMT's rubber gloves were removed, and a backboard, defibrillator, emergency cache, and IV tripod were replaced in the emergency vehicles. It, along with the fire truck, left the premises. The coroner's gloves stayed on through the phone calls and moving Ralph about. The crematorium people waited on the sidelines. A woman officer guided Carolyn into the house and suggested a cup of tea for both of them. "Your garden is magnificent. Your husband must have slipped on the slippery flagstone," the officer offered. "Yes, the moles are always digging under them. Ralph is always having to fix them." Carolyn was surprised by her own sense of resignation. "How appropriate that today is April Fool's Day," she said while thinking. Of all the cultivated plants on acres of garden, Ralph had been foolish enough to die beside the koi pond. Drowning would have been much less messy. By bedtime, Carolyn was at last alone in her house. Jennifer, the husband's niece, had rushed over, but seemed to be more interested in being in the way instead of being helpful. Carolyn was glad that the flighty woman with the scraggly hair had finally left. The door to Ralph's bedroom remained closed, as it always was. Her door was closed to him as well. How had it all come to this? She wondered. How had they grown so apart that his death was just a relief instead of a tragedy? In college, they had attended very different schools. Carolyn's father had sent her to Seattle University. She was an English major because her elitist father felt that it would develop eloquence and character thinking for his shy daughter. Meanwhile, Ralph was a landscape designer at the State University. They met at an inter-college mixer, and both were drawn to the other. Ralph thought an English major would enhance his plebeian status in agriculture studies. Carolyn was sure her father would approve of a landscape architect who could enhance the mansion's gardens. They married. Ralph was content to manage the gardens. Carolyn was her father's daughter and her husband's wife. That was enough. Jennifer insisted on accompanying Carolyn to the crematorium the next day. She fidgeted and kept weeping as if she had really cared about her uncle. Carolyn had never liked her and now found her more irritating than ever. With Ralph gone, Carolyn saw no need to be polite. "Jennifer," Carolyn said crisply, "if you can't act like a mature woman and stop this sniveling, you should just leave. I have business to attend to, and your presence is not necessary." Now, if you'd like to find out what Carolyn did with the rest of the story, please check out Unnerving 2 at your local bookstore.
Next, we have a little piece of scary from Carrie Avery Moriarty. Carrie is known for her work in romantic novels and some film work as an immortal vampire. Carrie has a nice little sample of her fantasy horror. Want more? Look her up on the Blue Forge website. After all, as a member of the undead, she will be around for a long, long time.
I'm Carrie Avery Moriarty, and I'm going to be reading from my story, Independence Day. We've got another one. Same MO? Same signature too. Shit. Ronald McNamara had been with the Preston County Sheriff's Office for 17 years. He'd come up through the ranks and was now the detective heading the task force overseeing the 3-month killing spree of a very good killer. At first, they hadn't linked the deaths, assuming each was killed by an acquaintance. Now, however, they knew it was the same perpetrator. "Where am I going?" he asked. The detective on the other end of the phone rattled off the location of the most recent discovery. "Tell them not to touch anything," he barked, then disconnected the call. Happy freaking Independence Day. "What do we have?" Mac asked as he arrived on scene. "Same as the rest," Garth replied. "This guy is sick." "You don't have to tell me," Mac replied. They walked from the yellow crime scene tape stretched around the area to where the coroner was. "Talk to me," Mac said to the coroner on the scene. "It's Danny Bannister," Dr. Jones said. "She went missing a week ago, right?" Garth asked. "Exactly 1 week," Mac replied. "He's bleached her hair," the coroner continued. "It's shorter than it was in the picture the family gave us, by about 6 inches. "Rape?" Mac asked. "Can't tell for sure, but my guess is yes," the doctor replied. I'll know more once I get her back on the tape. I'll know more once I get her back to the morgue. For now, we're going to assume yes, since she's in the same outfit as the others." "Dress post-mortem?" "I believe so," the doctor replied. "The buttons on the shirt are straight though, so he's getting better." I don't think that's a good thing," Garth said. "Neither do I," Mac replied. She's only been here a few hours, the doctor continued. Bricker hasn't set in fully yet. Best guess is she was killed somewhere close by. Not here? No, the doctor said. There isn't enough blood around. But we didn't expect that. But he usually waits until full rigor to drop them off, Garth said. Why did he change this time? Maybe he's getting braver, Max suggested. Maybe, Garth agreed. I've done just about all I can do here, the doctor said. I'll take her back to the morgue and let you know what I find out. Thanks, Doc, Max said. I feel like we're spinning our wheels, Garth said. Hopefully this one will give us more information than the last, Max said. She looked exactly like the others, Garth said. It's eerie. Mac gave a shake of his body, warding off a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Mac, the captain said as they walked into the precinct. Yeah, Mac replied. My office, the captain said. Following the man, Mac walked across the bullpen to the captain's office. Door. Shutting the door, Mac turned to the captain. Tell me what happened, the captain said. Aside from it being a fresher corpse, Mac began, everything is the same. Why is Dr. Jones saying she has something new? First I'm hearing, Mac replied, though he was hopeful this meant the case would break soon. Victim isn't who we thought, the captain said. I thought the doctor said it was the Bannister girl, Mac argued. See for yourself, the captain said, tossing a folder onto the desk. Mac picked it up, flipped it open, and stared. Who is it? He asked. Someone we didn't know was missing, the captain said. How did we miss this one? She doesn't fit the pattern, Max said as he sat down, file in hand. She's too old. And she's a working girl, the captain said. This isn't one of his, Max said, closing the file and looking at his captain. It's a copycat. How can you be sure? Because of what we didn't find, Max said. You sure it wasn't just missed? The doctor's report is clear, Mac insisted. Nothing in her stomach. So maybe this victim died before he could feed it to her, the captain suggested. Maybe, Mac concluded, but my gut tells me this isn't one of his. If you want to hear how the story ends, pick up a copy of Unnerving One wherever you find books.
Is Maxwell DeMarco our next victim? Sit back with another cup of witch's brew and enjoy his adventure into the realm of the unnerving from a writer, animator, filmmaker, and author.
I'm Maxwell DeMarco. I will be reading August, When Fall Comes Again, from Unnerving 3. A dim ray of light crept through the curtains, illuminating the darkness ever so slightly. It was morning, a new day. Winston's eyelids slowly opened to reveal his amber irises, his gaze drifting around the dim bedroom as he rose upright in his modest, twin-sized bed. Yawning, he stretched his lightly muscled arms, reaching over to his bedside table and flicking on the lamp. As the shadows faded and the light illuminated an image in his mind's eye, he was pleased to find that everything was just as it should be. Winston's light blue sheets were barely wrinkled from when he'd pulled them up over himself last night. He clearly slept like a rock. At the foot of his bed, the curtains were still drawn tight over the room's solitary window. Set beside the door, the small metal clothes hamper was empty once again. And in the corner of the room, always remaining out of his way, the 6 figures stood. They were all too familiar to Winston, even with their faces obscured by dark helmets and tinted visors. Still as statues, their breathing muffled and dry, they stared at him with hidden eyes. With no reason to go back to sleep, Winston got out of bed, pulled the covers neatly back over his pillow, and moved down the hall to the restroom. He could see the figures in the mirror as he brushed his pearly whites, now murmuring quietly to one another, or maybe just to themselves. Winston could never really tell. After taking a cold shower, Winston dressed himself before heading downstairs to the kitchen. Today, Winston had picked out his favorite outfit, a camo-printed muscle tee, coupled with loose-fitting black shorts. The figures were watching Winston while he pulled on his clothes, and in turn followed him downstairs, making more noises Winston couldn't comprehend. Still, Winston paid them no mind, placing his phone to his ear as he began to prepare his breakfast. "Morning, Frankie! Good to know you're still kicking." Winston placed a pan of eggs over the stovetop as he spoke. "So, ready to face another day, you old tree-hugging geezer?" "Excuse me, just who are you to call me a tree-hugger?" Frank quipped. "And if 30's the new 60, then you're right there with me, Buster." Winston laughed, shifting the pan over the burner as the eggs began to steam. "Nah, you know I'm just kidding, my man. For real, though, what have you got planned for the day?" Same stuff as usual, really," Frank stated casually, Winston retrieving a plate and spatula as he listened. "Got the new fertilizer spread out last week, so now it's just a matter of watering a big fat square of dirt and hoping that this batch of seeds has life in them. Just another day for a tree hugger, as you'd put it." Winston chuckled at his friend's words, transferring the eggs onto his plate. "Frank, I'm telling you, man, at this point it seems like a lost cause," Winston replied plainly. He exited the kitchen and sat down at his round, two-seater dining table with his food. The figures remained standing in the kitchen behind him. How are you even supposed to know if they're growing right? You've had no point of reference for, well, damn, definitely since before our ugly mugs were brought into the world. But, of course, Frank was insistent. "Listen, Winston," he began, as he always did. "If I can pull this off, then we might actually get a chance to revitalize this stinkhole planet we're stuck on. Nature gave us plants at the beginning, but humanity beat out nature in the end. So with our modern technology, I see no reason why I can't try our hand at undoing the damage. Heck, man, in just a few years, you could be making your first non-abstract piece. I dare you to tell me that wouldn't mean anything to you." Winston let him prattle on, polishing off his eggs in the meantime. Fine, do your thing, but I won't believe it until I see it," Winston reaffirmed, sitting up and returning to the kitchen to deposit his empty plate of a sink. "And I'm talking, the moment they're fully grown, you better be sending me pictures in both spring and fall. And don't you go thinking I won't notice you make a set of cheap plastic models to screw with me either. You know I have an eye for detail." Winston's words were stern, but his tone remained lighthearted and jovial. "All right, always good talking with you, Frankie boy. I'll check up on you tomorrow. Give us Sapling my regards." Winston hung up, discarding his phone before heading back through the dining area to the living room. This time, the figures resumed following him, coming to stand behind the couch as Winston sat down heavily with a resigned sigh. "On that note, let's check what good news we're showing today," Winston muttered, lifting the remote and flicking on his widescreen television. A resounding, flat tone filled the room, the screen displaying nothing but vertical bars of color. Winston's body froze up as behind him the figures murmuring became more chaotic, frenzied. And then, with a burst of static and a surge of electricity, the screen flickered to life. Continues to advise all citizens to remain indoors until further notice. The screen showed video of a woman standing beside a square overlay of footage, dressed in a short-sleeved shirt and unbuttoned black vest. Her strawberry blonde hair was peppered with hints of white, but her pale skin was devoid of any blemishes. As the murmuring behind him began to calm, Winston let out a spiteful chuckle. "And just who are they trying to fool here?" he asked, to no one in particular. "Poor Roxanne must be burning up under all that makeup. Nobody's skin has been that porcelain perfect since the early 2000s. There was a noise from behind him at that, but Winston was now entirely focused on the broadcast. As temperatures are expected to reach lethal new highs in the foreseeable future, the ozone layer officially on its last legs, we can certainly agree that this is the safest course of action. The news anchor assented, her face solemn even as she attempted to remain a removed, professional tone. If you would like to hear the rest of this story, please find Unnerving 3. Thank you for listening.
Bree Indigo is a longtime Blue Forge contributor and past participant in Claw events. A successful poet. Let us see what horrific words she has to share with us.
Hi, I'm Bree Indigo, and today I'm going to be reading from Unnerving Volume 3, my story from December, which is titled Consummation. first met you in the spring, a spark of something unknown, as I gathered lilac sprigs, crocuses, and hyacinth. I could feel your eyes, your gaze, your need, watching, waiting, and I wondered if you were a green man or a forest guardian. But when the sun broke through the clouds, you were gone, and the flowers I had gathered were wilted. Summer came with unbearable heat, a heavy, thick presence, inescapable, impenetrable. And it was then that I began to dream, my body asleep, but my mind suddenly awake, alert, alarmed, aware of you. Like a thick sheen of sweat covering every inch of my skin, and I couldn't move. Screams gathered, silent, caught in my throat, my chest tight with barely enough room to draw in breath around a heart that couldn't beat any harder without escaping through a broken sternum. And I began to pray, every conscious part of me focused on the ancient words, at Terra in this fateful hour. Ochre and burgundy leaves through my window, damp earth and petrichor filled my lungs. Finally, autumn arrived, and I felt like I could breathe again. And though you hadn't left on the westerly winds that blew away the oppressive heat, you weren't unexpected in this season of death. The hanged man reminded me to find perspective. The wheel of fortune promised the consistency of change, and the high priestess asked I acknowledge the darkness. So when you came in the night, I was ready, waiting, anticipating you, finding the stillness the priestess required, while her mother, the empress, showed me how to find the moon, and you filled me with your shadows. The frost came early this year. December settled in like the weight of a comfortable blanket, worn thin by the memories of all it has seen. The forest grew quiet, and the days grew shorter, but I had already prepared for winter. And I could feel you, watching me from the shadows, the weight of your gaze, following me in the garden, as I trimmed away dead leaves and old growth, making space for the promise of new blooms, the wheel of fortune always moving, reminding me of the impermanence of death and the cycle of rebirth. So when the sun set on the winter solstice, giving way to the longest, deepest night of shadows, I surrendered myself to the darkness. Like grief, demonic activity comes in stages. Infestation, oppression, obsession, and the final stage is possession. You thought you would devour me. You expected resistance, a fight, but I rode out your attack like a wave, my feet pulled away from the earth, trying to keep my head above water, struggling to find air, my chest burned with a deep fire, and I opened my mouth wide, a voiceless scream, I will not be consumed. You seized the moment, taking root as I choked, the thorn tendrils of you beginning to grip tight. My mouth closed, and you thought you had me. And if you'd like to hear the rest of the story, you can find Unnerving Volume 3 at any bookstore.
Jennifer DeMarco, my current publisher and best-selling author, must have some stories with her unique twist. Hopefully, she does not twist the heads off of dolls or flies.
My name is Jennifer DeMarco, and I'll be reading today from my story, The Georgia Peach Revolution. Daddy always called me his Georgia Peach. Never mind, we moved away from Georgia when I was 6. We were never stationed anywhere for longer than 3 years. I didn't correct him because part of me wanted it to be that simple. I wanted him to live out his southern dreams and raise his only daughter to be the belle of the ball. He'd already served 2 tours in Iraq, where his troop found shelter in bombed-out ruins infested with black widows and 6-inch camel spiders, where their patrols were so lousy with scorpions they had to pick them out from between their boot treads. He'd survived those dry, ugly years, only to be sitting on his front porch in the Everglades when the summertime night sky lit up with streaks of teal, chartreuse, pumpkin orange, and 3 shades of blue. Lacking the stony iron yellow of common meteorites, this comparatively prismatic light show was happening all over the world, heralded by some as the new promise of peace on Earth. But Skyfall wasn't the rainbow after the flood. It was the flood. Just nobody knew it yet. Mama had refused the cancer vaccine years ago, so it was just me and Daddy by then. I was taking a gap year trying to figure out if I wanted to enlist or pursue a degree in environmental science like my high school guidance counselor had urged. I'd been volunteering with the Everglade Preservation Society, begging for pennies from rich soft tech entrepreneurs who didn't know a sawfish from a Mayan cichlid. It was thankless work that nonetheless felt important. And I wanted so badly to feel important. When I came down for breakfast the next morning, Daddy was perched in front of the old flat screen with the live news captions turned on and the sound turned off. The sync was delayed, but I stopped and stared anyway. Space plants? He half swiveled toward me without taking his eyes off the broadcast. "Yeah, Peach," he confirmed, lost in reading. "I didn't want to wake you." I sank down on the old pleather ottoman and reached for the remote, thumbing up the volume. FEMA and National Guardsmen were deployed to all known fall sites as of 0900 this morning. While samples have been sent to the CDC and national labs, biologists have not confirmed what appearances seem to suggest. Earth has been seeded when... Daddy snorted. They estimate about 1 million pods. He turned to the big picture window that looked out over the lagoon. Doesn't sound like a seeding to me. He stood and walked to the glass, putting one hand on the pane. Sounds more like a bombardment. I watched him standing there and felt cold seep into my bones. His body was wiry and worn from years of survival, decades of memories relived every night. I knew what haunted looked like, and the darkness in his eyes when he turned to look at me was unmistakable. "Our time is done, Peach." His hand was still pressed to the glass. I couldn't look away. "Our time is done." The sound of distant thunder. An incoming triad or quad of airboats, easily breaking 100 decibels, pervaded our morning and almost drowned out the news anchor. Our first responders were clearly running late. "Which some are already calling roots. Growth of these tendrils appears to be accelerated in areas of temperate rainforest and tropical wetlands, where the soil has a high concentration of..." I should have gone out there, Daddy said so softly I wouldn't have heard him, except he was still staring at me. Why didn't I? I opened my mouth, but no words came. He whispered, "I should have taken my old Glock and..." Red and white FEMA airboats cut through the wetlands, no more than 100 yards from our front porch. The windows shook, the walls shook. Sound bounced off every surface of the room and made the photos on the mantel chatter like skeleton teeth. There were 4 boats, each with 6-foot aircraft-style propeller fans, the blades a blur of motion further obscured by my unshed tears. Didn't he have nightmares enough? Didn't we all? If you'd like to hear the rest of the Georgia Peach Revolution, pick up a copy of Unnerving, Volume 4. Thanks.
David Martin, a well-known historical fiction writer. Let's see if his story has some historical horror.
My name is Dave Martin, and I'm going to be reading from my story, The Witch of Endor. A low hiss filled her ear. She tried shaking her head, even clearing it with the tip of her little finger, but the soft hiss continued. "Where are we going, Father?" the barefoot girl asked as she followed along the rocky path up the hill of Mora. The Jezreel Valley opened below them as a flat plain between the low hill of Mora and its towering brother to the north, Mount Tabor. "If you're thirsty, Karam, we can stop. Drink some water and rest. It's another hour, daughter. I want you to be rested. Look, over there. That is our village, Endor. Look closely. Remember where it is." Karam looked down on her home and out towards Mount Tabor. "Father, I can see Mount Tabor and beyond. Mountains even greater. And in that direction I can see a great sea. What lies beyond the mountain, Father? Have you been beyond Mount Tabor? Have you been to the great sea?" Micah slowly turned and absorbed the view. "I have not been beyond the mountain, but my people have come from the end of the great sea. Our patriarch, Issachar, son of Jacob, called Israel, was given this land." Given, he reconsidered the word. "We had to fight the Canaanites to take it and fight to keep it. But your mother, her people are of Canaan, from Hazor, beyond Mount Tabor. You and Mama were enemies, Papa? Did you love Mama? Come along, Karam, the sun is getting high in the sky. Soon it will be hot. You will burn your feet." The two started back up the mountain. Karam did her best to ignore the growing hissing in her ears. "I can't wait to tell my brothers. I am sure they have never seen such a sight. Why did they not come along, Papa?" "They have work to do. You have told them to feed the orphan lamb, the one no one would know you would accept. It's such a sweet little lamb. You told them, Papa." "They will care for the lamb, and you will do as you're told when you meet the priest. Do not pester him with questions. Do you understand?" "I can ask you questions, Papa." "Of course, but not the priest. He is not a patient man." Micah and Karam continued up. They entered into a thicket of terebinth trees. Karam asked, "Why are the trees here but not below us? And what are these tall poles?" "The others have been cut down. These are holy trees. They surround the poles of Asherah, the mother goddess." "We're almost there." The hissing grew louder, and as Karam passed an Asherah pole, it seemed to whisper to her softly, "Karam, Karam." Coming out of the woods, Micah led Karam into a small compound, somewhat like a village. They walked past long dwellings, a well, and a kitchen. In the center was a tall stone building with an imposing golden statue of a bull guarding the entrance. Behind the bull was an altar with a blazing fire atop it. For once, Micah did not wait for Karam's questions. He saw amazement in her wide eyes. "That is Baal, Lord of the heavens. This is his temple. Come, his priest is inside." It was dark inside the temple. Out of the bright sunlight, it took time for their eyes to adjust, even with lamps and sconce torches lit. It was hard to see the walls and the ceiling through the hazy smoke that floated in the air, and the smell, like burning wet grass, but sweeter, filled their nostrils. A hand grasped Micah's shoulder. "You have brought her to the priest? This way." A man in a white tunic with a golden bowl emblazoned on the front led Micah into the smoke. The voice grew louder. "Karam." "Why is there so much smoke, Papa? It is hard to see, and it smells. Has something caught fire?" Uneasy with the voice, the smoke, and the smell, she sought to assure herself as she added, "The men do not seem alarmed. It is incense. It is for Baal. It cleanses everything in the temple, and it is pleasing to him. You will soon find it pleases you as well." They were led to a man in white robes with a golden helmet, standing in the center of the room, swinging a censer and chanting. They waited. The man made a complete circle, swinging his censer high into the air and chanting. When he finally stopped, he handed the censer to the robed man who brought them into the room. "Who brings this woman to Baal?" "Shh, Karam." "I am her father. That is, she is the daughter of my dead wife. My wife was devoted to Baal, Asherah, and the gods of Canaan. This, her daughter, was born to her after one of your many festivals. I called her Karam, vineyard, for she was fathered in a vineyard or under an Asherah pole. My wife played the harlot, so let her daughter live here as a temple prostitute. She is no use to me. If you want to read the rest of the story, please pick up a copy of An Unnerving 3.
Finally, yours truly, writing under his pen name of Marshall Miller, with a bit of ghoulish delight from one of my stories. Might I elicit a scream from you? Hello, I'm Marshall Miller, and I'll be reading from my story, April Fool. Mr. Ganib seemed to slide into a sliver of darkness. Once he was gone, the two boys looked at each other. Do we run? Jaime was shivering a bit. No, I want to find out how this guy works. That trapdoor and slide, incredible. I have to find out how he did it. Mr. Ganib slid back into view with a tray of pastries, cold meats and cheeses balanced in one hand and a pitcher of punch in the other. You're not mad about the flaming bag of crap, Bobby wondered. No, of course not. You see, young lads, I came to your country to study your culture. I especially want to learn about your sense of humor. The pranks and practical jokes to devise are extremely interesting to me. Thus, I try to respond in kind. The strange man leaned forward and Bobby noticed his eyes were green. Did I succeed? Did I prank you? Bobby laughed. Hell yeah, especially that trap door. I nearly peed my pants. Mr. Ganib laughed as he sat down in a large padded armchair facing them. Excellent. Now, eat and drink. You are safe here. As I said, I just want to pick your brains. Tell me of your most excellent jokes as you enjoy the refreshments. Compared to you two, I'm but a babe in the woods. Bobby and Jaime soon found themselves blathering between mouthfuls. Young boys growing into young men are always hungry, and the food was of superior quality. Half hour later, Bobby was patting his stomach. My mom would say I made a pig of myself, Mr. Ganib. You must call me Neil. All my friends do, and I want you to be my friend as I learn your ways. Ganib stood up abruptly and motioned the two boys to follow. Come, I must show you something, a game I'm working on. It involves jokes and pranks. It was as if they slid into a slice of darkness and re-emerged into a large room set up as a laboratory. In one corner of glass beakers and electrical equipment sat what looked like a gaming console and flat-screen television of stupendous dimensions. Ganib motioned for Bobby and Jaime to sit in two padded chairs facing the screen and handed them each a top-of-the-line controller. The purpose of this game is quite simple. You will be directed to perform certain functions, which may or may not lead to a prank or practical joke. If you dodge a joke, I want your reactions and feelings. If you suffer a joke, I want to observe the same. Oh, wait a minute. The man again slid away and reappeared with two thick headsets. These are my own design. They will track your brainwaves and record your true reactions. No, they will not hurt you. Want to try? Bobby and Jaime looked at each other and nodded. Sure, why not? Bobby answered. We both like video games. Excellent. Now, please watch the screen and follow the prompts. The two friends were soon playing the unusual game. Bobby figured out quickly that the player was led through a series of adventures filled with possible pratfalls, attacks on chairs, and so on. If you dodged the prank, you went on to the next level. If you fell for the prank, you slightly felt the pain associated with the joke. It didn't take long for Bobby to lose interest. This side of things wasn't as satisfying. He removed the headset and heard Jaime laughing up a storm. Well, Bobby, and Eagle Ganib asked, what do you think? I'm done playing, Bobby answered with a shrug. It's not as much fun as pulling pranks myself. You just provided excellent data. Like shooting another player. Is it a thrill of doing to others? Correct? I guess. I need to use the bathroom. Around the corner. The bathroom looked like any such convenience in any house. Nothing yet to report. Bobby returned to the laboratory and saw Jaime standing with a big grin on his face. That was fun, exclaimed Jaime. Bobby, I would like to run Jaime through some more one-player games. I want to stay, Bobby. Bobby looked at his friend and felt odd. Everything seemed fine. So finally he just shrugged. Okay, I'll be back in an hour. Hey, Neil? Bobby put on his protective face. If anything weird happens, perish the thought, Ganib jumped in. We will see you in an hour. The man helped Bobby find the front door. The house seemed to have some weird twists and turns, and Bobby started to leave. Wait! I almost forgot! Ganib disappeared back into the house. A few minutes later, the man handed Bobby a large bag. Bobby looked in and saw a box. Another game for you to look at while you wait. See you soon! Bobby felt odd again as he walked the 10 minutes to his house. Mike and Jeannie were in the kitchen talking. No calls from the school or the cops, said Mike. I guess any April Fool's joke will be blamed on other people. What's in the bag, honey? Jeannie asked. A game that the guy living in the old Wilson house gave me to try. He makes them. Can I look at it, son? Sure, Mom. I need to change into my sweats and go get Jaime to shoot some basket. His mother's screams and Mike's cursing had Bobby running to the kitchen half-dressed. Mike was holding Jeannie as she screamed like a banshee. What have you done? Mike bellowed. You sick bastard! On the floor was the box. Next to the box was Jaime's bloody head. A neat hole in the top of the cranium revealed the brain had been removed. Bobby screamed, then vomited all over the kitchen floor. If you'd like to hear the rest of the story, find Unnerving Volume 1.
Where are you? You called me here. I want you to go away. You asked for my help. Now, I'm here. I didn't ask for help. Really? You don't remember what they did to you? No, please! They beat you, stole from you, cheated you, hurt you. No, I don't want you in my head! There's only one way I'll be silent again. You must end them. But you can't do it alone. We'll do it together. Johnny, come this way. I've been waiting for you. Johnny, watch where you're going.
Why is the damn piece of quiet? Ah, son of a bitch.
Come on, Samantha. You can't just ignore me forever. Sam, watch out! What is wrong with you? Pull over! Damn it, Samantha, when are you gonna stop behaving like this? Seems like you just hate me all the time now. Do you want to get a divorce? Haha! Really funny. We don't need games. We're trying to have a conversation here.
I think you're right, Roger.
About what?
I want a divorce.
Somebody's clearly messing with us. We should talk about this later. You're upset, I'm upset. I'm sorry I even brought it up.
Do you recognize this dress, Roger? This is my prom dress. But how is it here?
I don't know who is doing this, but I've had enough. It's ridiculous. Leave us alone.
Daddy, I want to play ball.
This is funny. We don't even have kids. Sam?
You would have been. I got pregnant on prom night. And I never told you. We got in the fight. And then there was the car accident. And I lost the baby. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be a mother. And then after the accident, I couldn't be. And I just never had the heart to tell you.
Mommy, can we play, please?
Okay, sweetie. Let's play.
Enough, Jane. Enough. You've lost your hearing, but your self-pity will lose you your life. I'm here to stop that from happening. I'll be your protector, your fairy goth mother. You have a special destiny, Jane. You can't hear what others say anymore, but you can hear all the things that others can't. You aren't broken. You're fixed. It's time to set sail, Jane.
It's time to start your journey.
Hey there, little guy. Don, look!
Well, this ends the Halloween episode of Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Showcase and wraps up a 6th Claw annual Halloween show. But it's not wrapped up like a mummy, nor in coronavirus. It was completed thanks to the excellent support from Blue Forge Group and the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television staff and crew. For without their help, this production would not exist. You can watch Claw broadcasts on Wave Cable Astound Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12 at 6 p.m. every Saturday. You can also view Claw shows on bcat.org and posted by Blue Forge crew on YouTube. Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers exists to help all authors and creatives to present their art to the Pacific Northwest population. We meet twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays at Sparrow's Pizza on Kitsap Way in Bremerton, Washington. Stop in if you are striving to get your creative work out to your community. After Halloween, I promise we will not bite. Watch our updates on Facebook and Meetup. And look for Claw on our new website and domain, which is going to be www.claw.group/ for lists of members and their artistic works. Blue Forge Group, a nonprofit organization, helps with our creative endeavors. Through the subsidiary Blue Forge Films, the staff ensures our shows are posted on YouTube and other visual media. Check www.tiny.cc/claw for a listing of Claw shows. Any person in the viewing audience who wants to learn how to produce a public access television show, please contact the new BCAT manager, Colleen Miko. She puts up with Claw, so I'm pretty sure she'll put up with a lot of other groups. So to all the BCAT audiences, have a productive and pleasant month and year. And remember, trick or treat, smelly feet, give us something good to eat. Forgot. There's one other individual that we need to give thanks to. He was here all during the filming, and help protecting us from some of the nasty things that float around here in the Pacific Northwest. Go have and say hello to Lucky.